Football, sliced and diced with Sedgemoor FM and Somerset FA.
Welcome to Sliced and Diced, where we have open and honest conversations about football. I'm Neil Fellowes from Sedgemoor FM.
And I'm Paul Coltman, marketing consultant for Somerset FA.
So in this episode, we're going to be talking about the transfer window. So before we get into talking about today's topic, just let me give you a very quick invitation. If you're a fan of a local club or a player or a club official or in any way involved in local football, then you want to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell to get notifications of all of our latest uploads as and when they drop. On this channel, you'll also get some local interest stories and the occasional music related video too. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about the transfer window. Paul, let's start off with a really basic question. What is the transfer window?
It's a madness, is what it is. Basically, for the elite side of the game, there is two periods throughout a 12-month calendar where players can transfer. Now, it's slightly different with free agents and loanees, but as a pure one club to another club player transfer for money, there's a window. The two windows are over the summer, sort of July, August, up till the end of September, and then a mad one in January, which actually this January has been quite a quiet one. Probably due to a lot of uncertainty and caution around sort of the FFP regulations and one or two of the higher end clubs being caught out or investigated. So yes, but basically it's a window of opportunity throughout the year where players can move from one club to another.
What's the difference between what we see at like an elite level?
Yep.
Premier League, etc., and also then what happens at grassroots? What's the difference?
So at elite level, it's obviously a huge business. The player transfer process is very different. There's obviously multiple parties involved. In some cases, from country to country, continent to continent. Yeah. So it's a huge process, and obviously a lot of legal implications around making that process happen. From a grassroots point of view, the basics of it is still very similar. If you want to sign a player, you have to approach that player's existing club. You have to apply for a notice of approach to talk to that player and or their representative. You then, if that club approves, you have a window to talk to that player in, and then once that time has passed, you can then register that player or within that window register that player and complete the process.
That's the proper process. Does that always happen?
No, and it's near on impossible to police. Yep. Even at elite level, you see it. Players have said it in interviews. After the game, so and so said, you should come play for us. In effect, that's not the right process, but it happens. Say, and grassroots, you walk the dog with someone that plays for a different team. You're going to have a conversation. You might get about talking, signing. Social media plays a huge part. Obviously, there's conversations that happen. Yeah. I think with all of them, once it gets to a particular point in that conversation, that's when the clubs make the approach and go through the process. But it's near on impossible to police.
We're obviously talking about grassroots football in this podcast, and what I'm just wondering is what's actually happened locally in terms of those local transfers. I mean, if you start off with, say, Bridgwater, for example, because I've covered a lot of games. When I saw Jack Taylor had left in October or November before the window, and then I see him come back now.
In the window.
Tell me what's gone on.
So Jack's is an interesting one, and there's hundreds of these across the grassroots.
Because I was gutted when it
left. No, for sure. And I think that there was a little bit of, not miscommunication, but obviously these types of processes are between players and clubs, and not always are the details shared. But Jack and many others at that level of football, his was what was classed as a dual signing. So, yeah. So, a dual signing is effectively where a player can play for one or can be registered for one or more teams, as long as those teams aren't in the same league or same level. So, what Jack did was he stayed registered as a Bridgwater player, but he also registered elsewhere at Cossham. Obviously, that didn't necessarily work out, and Jack has reappeared and seems to be playing more Bridgwater games than anything else at the moment, which is obviously great news for Bridgwater fans. A local legend, let's call him, and obviously a huge fan's favourite. Elsewhere at Bridgwater, obviously post Christmas there was one or two things going on that kept local media interested. Jake Viney was one of the players that left in January. He re-signed, went back to an old club of his, back to Wellington. Bridgwater and Taunton, both in this January period, have utilised their BTC pathway, their Bridgwater and Taunton College player pathway, and have sort of signed players from within that.
Some good young players.
Some quality young players. Obviously, a couple of them that we covered in a previous podcast with Mason from the college have signed in this window with Aberdeen and Bristol City, and so they make some really good players. And I think the pathway is a great opportunity for them to maximise their football and obviously play a higher level in the open age sector. And then obviously Josiah McCallie. Has reappeared as a player. Obviously, bit of pre-season with Bridgwater, went a bit quiet, wasn't quite sure. Always stayed on their books, but wasn't quite sure whether he was in or out. But he's reappeared in the new year and is doing very well. Elsewhere locally, Taunton. Well, if you're not living in a cave, you probably have heard that Taunton are having some troubles. Plenty of players out for one reason or another, but they have had a couple of loanees come in from Bristol City, Zach Bell and Marley Rose, both making impacts. As I said before, some young players coming in as well, and obviously Louis Slough has come in, made his debut at Slough, which seemed to it was nice timing from that point of view. I had the pleasure to watch him last week in the County Cup, and I think he got man of the match in that game. He's making an impact. Weston again. And with Yeovil, just looking at my notes, Bristol City seem to have been putting players all over the place on loan. So Weston have picked up a loanee, a couple of players extension, one or two going out. But I think the most notable thing at Weston was they got Scott Bartlett to put pen to paper and extend his managerial contract, which I think is a great bit of business. Weston are doing really well. He obviously got them into the National League, so I think it was fair that he got that.
Great run of 8 wins leading up to Christmas. Bit patchy in January. Last couple of games seem to be coming back again.
No, definitely. I think ultimately they'll be safe. I can't see any of the Somerset 4 not being safe personally, but I think that's a good bit of business at Weston there. Yeovil, probably the busiest of the big 4 in Somerset. Picked up a fair few from the Taunton Exodus and various around the country. Loanee in from Bristol City, as I said, Thomas, and Sam Pearson on a permanent move. But Jordan Young also put pen to paper and extended his contract. So I think that's again a good bit of business. Quality young player there. Elsewhere around the county, well. It's the merry-go-round that it always is. Players in and out at sort of Southern League, County, Tool Station. It's just players in and out all over the place. And Grassroots continues to transfer 15 to 20 players a week across the leagues. But and that will always be the case up until their window stops. So a lot of leagues put a deadline for transfers. Lots tend to be sort of end of February or end of March. Again, if you're unsure, check with your leagues. So you can only do new signings after that. You can't transfer players. So lots going on as always, and we'll continue to see movement.
Well, thanks for coming in today.
No worries.
The transfer window, not just the elite level, but what goes on at grassroots. Because sometimes, either someone in the media, sometimes I'm looking at it and go, hang on a minute, what's happened?
Yeah. It's confusing because obviously the Sky Sports and the BBCs, they're very focused on the transfer window, but actually what we want to know about here, local grassroots, that happens all the time, and staying abreast of what is going on and who's going where, doing what and why is important. The fans want to know, and hopefully we can deliver what we know to them throughout the week on our Friday night sports shows and through the podcasts.
If you've enjoyed this episode, then please subscribe to the channel and remember to hit the bell to get notified about all of our latest uploads. Also, if you would like to get some extras from within the studio, like memes that we don't usually share anywhere else, a regular newsletter and access to our best of archive, then please follow the Patreon link in the description.